Okay, so I've started the recording, and I want to just, again, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about what's new in Sage 300 2016 and Sage 300C. This session will be available on the web probably in a few days after we do this webinar today. And you can go back over any of the recording that you would like to after we get it posted on our blog site. And that'll be available at tandemtechnologiesllc.com. So today we're going to be talking about Sage 300 and the Sage 300C. What are the differences between them? They are going to be considered separate products for Sage's purposes. So there are some different pricing structures for the Sage 300C versus if you were doing Sage 300 2016. So this is our agenda today. I'm going to pretty much stick right to it. We're not going to go into a live copy of Sage 300 2016, also because I don't have Sage 300C up and going on our web server yet. So we have not had the time, given that we've had a lot of payroll tax updates. As you all know, we had to do towards the end of the year, and just with the January date, we're always very busy with getting W-2s and 1099s and helping clients with that. So we are a little behind the gun here on getting Sage 300C working on our servers. Okay, so we want to just let you know a little bit about the choices that you've got here, which now you're going to have the Sage 300C in addition to the normal Sage 300 platform, which is what all of you have currently now and are running. It is different from the portal, and that when you install Sage 300C, you would not be able to run the portal as well. So you have to make a choice between the 300C and running the portal. There is also a different install code for 300C, so you would have to obtain a different set of licensing to do that. As always, we make sure that all of our consultants are certified in the most recent products, and we just got our certification logos here, and I've put them up on the screen so that you can see them. This is our commitment to Sage and also to our customers, and I think it's important that you understand that Tandem Technologies is offering many choices with the Sage products that we sell and support. And we're also encouraging all of our consultants to consistently stay ahead of the game on new technology that's released, and it helps us offer growth-based products for our customers, which is very important in today's technology-based world. So Sage is offering Sage 300C, which now is only going to be available via a subscription. And we'll talk about some of the pricing and things like that a little bit later, as I did have it on my agenda to discuss. The Sage 300 Perpetual is what you have now. So there are fees to moving to Sage 300C, but again, we'll talk about those later, and it is a subscription product. So you would be signing a contract with Sage for the Sage 300C, and that currently is the only available choice when you are wanting to move to Sage 300C. You would need to move to a subscription base. So, and what that means is right now on your Perpetual, you pay Sage an annual business care license, whereas with a subscription, it can be either month to month or year to year and or multiple years at a time. And then once that subscription runs out, of course, products would not work any longer. Okay, so that's something to consider. There's expiration dates involved with the licensing in a subscription platform. All right, if you're going to be upgrading to the 2016 version or just moving to Sage 300C, there's some good information here about the differences in the products. So obviously we're going to go over all of the new features and functionality that have been added to 2016 that I feel would be applicable to today's audience. I will also briefly show you some of the screens in Sage 300C. Right now, Sage 300C is not for all clients that are on a perpetual license, because if you needed inventory control, order entry, purchase orders, those modules are not yet available with the Sage 300C. and I'll be talking about the enhancements and how that's going to progress, and they'll be releasing new modules as time goes on, and I'll be discussing that today as well. But the main thing is that we want to just tell you about the new features and functionalities, and also help you understand what are the differences between 300 and 300C. So let's take a look first at Sage 300C. These are the screens on the left, which are the perpetual screens that you're using now. And if you're using the portal, your screens are going to look more like the ones over here on the right. But in fact, this is a new Sage 300C screen on the right-hand side. So this is what they look like. And if you're currently, again, using that portal, there's subtle differences here on what these screens look like, but they are different. And hence, you can't have the portal installed and also use Sage 300C. The main purpose behind Sage 300C is that they're offering you mobility. So this age that we're in, where everybody's running around with iPhones and Androids, tablets, PCs on the go, all of this is outside of the office, intranet. And so the Sage 300C offers you that mobility that you can't get with a perpetual license. Or at least if you were doing it, it was very difficult and kludgy. I think anybody who's tried to run it can certainly understand that comment. So they developed Sage 300C mostly to be mobile and to allow it to run in a true web-based or browser-based application. In Sage 300, they also added for the C version additional KPIs, which stands for Key Performance Indicators. So if you were using the portal, there are some additional KPIs that are now added in the 300C version that are not in the portal. And these are listed here on the left. I won't read them through because I know that all of you can read, and it's somewhat boring when somebody reads you a list that's already there. So I'll just pause here for a moment, and then I'll let you go on to the next slide. Okay. Sage 300C, the roadmap ahead. So we've released the first version of Sage 300C, which again includes the general ledger, accounts receivable, accounts payable, tax services, and bank, which also you're going to be getting common services and administrative services with that, along with the Sage payment processing. In the February release, they're going to be adding additional screens for GL, AR, and AP, but they will also be then adding what we call the distribution modules, which are IC, OE, and PO, and additional widgets. So the Sage 300C will continue to develop and be a big part of Sage's overall strategy for improving the product that they offer clients and improving the mobility application. Now I want to move on to the new features in Sage 300. And the reason that we are showing the Sage 300 now and not first is because all of the screens that you are about to see in Sage 300, these would also, of course, be available in the Sage 300C. So you're not losing product functionality by moving to Sage 300C, okay? But we want you to know that not all the modules are currently available. And so some of the modules, improvements that you see here in the modules that aren't available in Sage 300C, I'll be showing you today. So let's go to 300 and talk about what's new here. The first new feature was that they increased the usability of the GL transaction listing report so that you can now sort this report by a document date. Now, over on the left-hand side of this, there's a little screen that says Votes 128 and Vote For. You also can go out to Sage website by going up to your Sage 300 Help and going to click on Logging an Issue with Sage. And this allows you to have direct contact and access with Sage so that you can make these type of requests as well. So obviously this got a lot of votes for being a feature that people wanted with this GL transaction listing report, and thus Sage put it on the release for Sage 300 2016. So your votes do count with Sage, and it's always important to go out and log the things that you would like Sage to be able to do in the future. They do listen. There's also an entered by field now in the General Ledger journal entry. So this wasn't there before, and this allows you to understand what users put this entry in the General Ledger. If you also remember, these screens, the entered by screen field, became available in the purchase order and sales order entry as well in, I believe, 2014. So they're increasing the number of entered by fields on the different journal transactions. That way it helps users understand who was responsible for entering an original transaction. So if I made an edit to this, of course, it's not going to show the edited by, but it would show the original person that entered the transaction. There's also a new post button in the GL, AR, AP, and bank reconciliation windows. So as soon as you are done entering an invoice, and it's been assigned to a batch, of course, you should be allowed to post that entire batch down. So if you were to hit post on this and then try to create another invoice, it would be into a new batch number. Obviously, it wouldn't post into the same batch 66. So this new post button allows you to immediately post from the invoice entry screen or from the accounts payable invoice entry screen. There is in the tax tracking, so this is going to be in your Common Services tax reporting. They have taken off the clear tax tracking button that you could actually delete and remove all of the tax tracking information. So that has been now removed, and so if you need to go back and reprint tax reports from the past, you would be allowed to do that. So that feature has been removed from the option grid. We also can now go view tax information by a year and period, so you can do a from date to a date. So you can see it over a range or a period of time, whereas before it used to just have the fiscal period and the document date. So you couldn't select a from and to range, you could only put in a fiscal period. For IT, they found that they needed to separate the tasks of an IT person that doesn't need to have access to the accounting, for instance. So they've made the database load and database dump be accessible to only a group ID that perhaps you set up as IT. So in this example here, they've set up a group ID for IT, and then they've only assigned the database load and the database dump to that user ID group. So then when you're creating a user for your IT staff and they need to go in and do a database load and dump, you're not giving them permissions to get into other accounting modules or to other tasks of the software that you don't want them to have access to. Because most IT people do not understand accounting and probably don't want to, or if they do, they're probably doing some sort of programming or additional work for you beyond just the IT. But this does give them the ability now to just log in and see those two things that they need to see and do. Okay, so performance is a big issue. They've increased some of the reporting, made the reports run faster. So in the performance aspect of things, some of the reports have been increased to run a little bit quicker. I also wanted to just point out that in the 2016 version, specifically to do with payroll, version 7.2, they added the complementary My Workflow Analyzer, Workforce Analyzer, that is available to you until February 29th, 2016, if you own the Sage 300 payroll and have this version 7.2 installed. So the My Workflow Analyzer would only work with that particular version. And I also just want to point out that after February 29th, this tool would no longer work. It is going to be done on a subscription basis, We at this time don't have the pricing for what Sage is going to be charging in a subscription for this My Workflow Analyzer. I also want you to be aware that even though the federal government has extended the deadline date for the 1095s and the 1094 to be electronically filed, we have not gotten an extension from Sage beyond February 29th. So I just wanted to point that out because that can be pretty important if you're thinking that you're going to just delay using this tool because Sage has not allowed the tool to go beyond February 29th in a free or complimentary usage. Okay, so some other technical enhancements. With the version 2016, the only database that is now supported is SQL. So they're no longer supporting the Pervasive or Oracle databases that they were in the past. There's also now support for Microsoft Office 2016 and the current version of Windows. There's also, when we go to upgrade you, there was a tremendous amount of effort on our part to go in and make sure that you had done a lot of activities like running day end, running the data integrity checker, which we still are going to do, but posting outstanding batches and things like that, those all had to be things that you had to do in order for us to upgrade you to the new version. So now, with the 2016, those are no longer needed to be done. So there's no need to make sure that both batches are posted down and that your bank reconciliation is 0 because some people don't use those features. And therefore, they didn't want to post batches to the GL, even though they were using payroll or using accounts payable. Maybe they were entering their own transactions in the general ledger. So we're very happy that Sage has done away with these tedious tasks that the resellers like us had to perform in order to get an upgrade completed. So also, every time the install is done on a workstation, it will automatically run the regex, which ensures that all of the DLLs, which are dynamic link libraries, are installed on the server, and it checks them. And it creates a log file in the Windows directory of each workstation so that you can check and see if there were any issues with registering any of the ACPAC or Sage 300 DLLs. We've also taken away that user account control that needed to be turned off or made to a different level, a lower level of security. So we've gotten around that, and we no longer have to worry about the user account control, which if any of you have experienced that, it can be very frustrating because it leaves your computer vulnerable to security risks and breaches. So let's talk a little about pricing and packaging with the Sage 300 2016 and Sage 300C. If you are currently an on-plan customer, which most of you today on this call are already using Sage 300 as a perpetual license, if you were wanting to move to Sage 300C to obtain the ability to have a web-enabled or web-deployed application, basically you would pay an additional 15% on the business care that you already have paid. So as an example of that, down here at the bottom, let's say that you currently pay $4,589 a year for your Sage 300 perpetual business care plan. What moving to a Sage 300C platform would bump that price to is $5,277.35. So it's just a 15% increase over the plan that you currently have paid for. That also is for a one-year subscription. So you would be given a new set of licensing and then installing the Sage 300C with a subscription end date that would need to, of course, be renewed and updated when you move to Sage 300C each year. Sage has a plan that they will be moving all of their customers to a subscription basis in the future. And to kind of demonstrate that a little bit, I will log in and show you. Let me get back over here to my desktop. Let's go to Sage 300. And all of you, if you have had the payroll module installed, you should now see exactly this, because the Sage 300 version 7.2 module required that the subscription basis have this. So let's go to the licenses and license manager. And if we go over to the payroll module down here, oops, I about passed it, we'll notice that there's a new expiry date column and a new status, whereas before we just had the activation code and it indicated whether it was activated or not over in this column. So these are new columns that were added when you installed the payroll version 7.2. So that's when these occurred. So these will be applicable to the Sage 300C subscription model as well. Now, Sage will be moving all of their clients in the future to a subscription base. For now, they are not planning on doing that. In other words, over the next 3 to 6 months, I don't think they're planning on moving everybody at that point in time to a subscription base. But if you were on my call back in October, this was a call where I'd indicated that Sage was going to be doing that, and we now have confirmation that they will at some point. One of the things we are also aware of is that they will be making an increase to the business care, whether you're going to be on a perpetual or subscription base. So some advice I might have for you is to call up Sage Business Care and lock in a 3-year subscription with Sage on your existing Sage 300 perpetual. So if you paid for a 1 year of business care in advance, you may want to call the business care phone number at Sage and ask them to quote you an additional 2 years on your Sage Business Care. That way it locks in that rate for you, and you would not for 3 years have to worry about any increase in your Sage Business Care for that 3-year period. Now, if you're going to be moving to Sage 300, there's also what they call upfront fees, and Sage is waiving those right now. So I don't know that they would be waiving them in the future, but for example, an upfront fee, if you're going to move to Sage 300C and you're on the premium edition of Sage 300 Perpetual today, per user, it's $950 for the upfront fees. So if you are considering moving to Sage 300C, you may want to consider it sooner rather than later. I don't know how long Sage is going to waive the upfront fees for existing clients. So if this is something that you would like to discuss further, we certainly would be available to do that with you. We are not sure how much Sage is going to increase their business care this year, but we do believe they will be doing so. So that's why we are at this time encouraging those of you who know you're going to be continuing to use the Sage 300 product to go ahead and get a quote from Sage to lock in your business care rate for another 2 years. At this time, I'm going to take any questions that anybody has regarding Sage 300 2016 or even the Sage 300C. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the recording off, and I'll take questions.